Nearly 150 million votes have been cast in the 2020 election. And even before initial counts are complete, even before all the states were called, even though recounts and audits haven't even begun, and even though the Trump campaign is ready for a prolonged legal battle, the media has decided to call the election for Joe Biden and declare him president-elect. And the Democrats immediately started celebrating, totally social distancing and wearing masks, just like the CDC guidelines recommend. I'm sure that Joe Biden is very proud of their restraint. Speaking of restraint, Joe Biden showed that he has none.
The people of this nation have spoken. They've delivered us a clear victory, a convincing victory, a victory for we the people.
And with that, he broke the pledge that he made during the first presidential debate.
Will you pledge not to declare victory until the election is independently certified?
Yes, and here's the deal. We count the ballots, as you pointed out. Some of these ballots in some states can't even be opened until Election Day. And if there's thousands of ballots, it's going to take time to do it, because once the winner is declared after all the ballots are counted, all the votes are counted, that'll be the end of it.
And yet, before all the votes were counted, he declared victory.
This election is over.
Except no. Pennsylvania, Georgia, Alaska, North Carolina, Arizona, Wisconsin, and Nevada hadn't finished counting and/or are headed to recounts and audits. And instead of the press calling Biden out for breaking his pledge, they attack President Trump.
Sir, what do you say to the Americans that are anxious over the fact that President Trump has yet to concede and what that might mean for the country?
Well, I just think it's an embarrassment.
Why should Trump concede an election where all the votes haven't been counted? Because Orange Man bad, obviously. Of course, it's different for Democratic candidates. Remember former Democratic gubernatorial candidate and Biden surrogate Stacey Abrams? Well, you may recall that she lost her 2018 election against Brian Kemp. And 2 years later, she has yet to concede the race. Do you think that Biden called her an embarrassment? Nope.
The leader of the woman who should have been the governor of Georgia, an African-American woman, was incredibly good.
So instead of calling her out, he considered her to be his vice presidential pick because of integrity or something. I guess it's just different when a Democrat challenges results. But whatever, Jimmy Fallon says that the 2020 election is over, so you might as well accept it, losers.
The announcement was like the greatest unboxing video of all time. It's Biden! It's Biden! It's Biden! It's Biden!
That is some fucking cringe right there. Anyway, win or lose, I thought it would be interesting to speculate and make some predictions and see what a Harris-Biden administration would look like over the next 4 years. First, no matter what happens, one thing is for sure. The polls were completely and utterly wrong and should never be trusted again. For example, in the North Carolina Senate race, nearly every poll had Cal Cunningham ahead of incumbent Thom Tillis. In reality, it was a much tighter race, and Senator Tillis will keep his seat. Another example was the Senate race in Maine, where challenger Sarah Gideon was supposedly ahead of Susan Collins by as much as 12 points. In reality, Collins handily beat Gideon by nearly 9 points. That's what happens when you oversample independents by double digits. With that said, there was no blue wave in the House or the Senate, which means that if Biden does become president, he's going to have a tough time getting his agenda passed, but more on that later. First, he'll need to get his cabinet confirmed, and with the Senate likely to have a 52-48 Republican majority, Mitch McConnell could play hardball like the Democrats before him. First, there's Bernie Sanders. Not even kidding. Apparently, Bernie is actively pursuing the job of Secretary of Labor. Sure, pick the guy who couldn't hold down a job until he won a seat in office. And while Sanders is not remotely qualified for the job, the Senate could confirm him because his replacement would be picked by the Republican governor of Vermont, giving Republicans a 53-47 majority. Plus anything to get Sanders out of the Senate, right? Then there's Senator Elizabeth Warren, who according to reports wants the job of Secretary of the Treasury. And Biden-Obama owes Warren for passing her over as director of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the bureau that she helped create. Former Secretary of State John Kerry could be nominated for Secretary of State again, but so could Susan Rice. She could also be given back her old role as National Security Advisor. And what about Andrew Yang? Well, apparently, Yang and Biden have been talking.
Joe and I have actually been talking about a new position that doesn't exist yet, but should, around technology and innovation. But those conversations have been very general, so to TBD.
But when it comes to technology and innovation, Yang might have some competition from former Mayor Rahm Emanuel, who has some ideas of his own.
And there's going to be people like at JCPenney and other retail. Those jobs aren't coming back. Give them the tools, 6 months, you're going to become a computer coder. We'll pay for it. And you'll get millions of people to sign up for that. They are not going back to parts of the retail economy, and we need to give them a lifeline to what's the next chapter.
Translation? Learn to code. And logistically, who would be teaching these millions of people to code? And what percentage of retail workers do you think would be able to handle switching to a math-heavy field in a 6-month period? I'm gonna guess very few. Also, most employers in that field require applicants to have a bachelor's degree in computer science or engineering. A 6-month course with a government certificate isn't gonna be enough. You might as well just sign them up for real estate courses. Just as useless. Then there's Senator Amy Klobuchar, who could be tapped as the United States Attorney General. And if she were confirmed, the governor of Minnesota would pick her replacement, possibly someone like Ilhan Omar or Keith Ellison. I'm thinking that Republicans might have a problem with them. But Biden could also nominate the brave Sally Yates, who was the acting US Attorney General who was fired by Trump for insubordination. She might not be picked, but at the very least, she'll be up for receiving the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And then there's Beto O'Rourke.
I'm going to guarantee you this is not last year's scene of this guy. You're going to take care of the gun problem with me. You're going to be the one that leads this effort. I'm counting on you. I'm counting on you. We need you badly. The state needs you. The country needs you. You're the best.
And that brings us to policy. With a Republican Senate, you bet that Beto's brand of so-called meaningful gun reform is not going to fly. And then there's this promise that both Biden and Harris made on the campaign trail.
By the way, how many of you did really well with that $1.9 trillion tax cut that increased? Really good shape, right? Really changed your, well, you did. Well, that's good. I'm glad to see you're doing well already. And I'm good. But guess what? If you elect me, you're not going to have your taxes are going to be raised, not cut, if you benefit from that.
I promise you this. As a first order of business, Joe Biden and I are about to work to get rid of that tax cut.
Well, with the Republican Senate, you will not see any changes to the Trump tax cuts, nor will you see this.
Would you bring back the individual mandate?
Pardon me?
Would you bring back the individual mandate?
Yes, I bring back the individual mandate.
Think that'll be popular?
Well, it's not. Yes, now it would be compared to what's being offered.
Because remember, folks, the Supreme Court ruled that the individual mandate for Obamacare was a tax, and that paved the way for Congress to eliminate the mandate. Biden said that he wouldn't raise taxes for the middle class, but if the mandate's a tax, then he wants to raise taxes for the middle class. And it doesn't matter anyway, because as long as the Republicans control the Senate, there is no way that a Biden administration will get the individual mandate reinstated, let alone push through Biden-care. And remember all of that talk making both Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. a state? Sure, it could still happen, but not under a Biden-Harris administration. And what about expanding the Supreme Court from 9 to 13 or even 15 justices? Well, that's going to have to put on hold too. And if Biden gets a chance to nominate a Supreme Court justice, well, it better happen before 2024. Because just like 2016 and Merrick Garland, McConnell will refuse to consider a nomination. So if worst comes to worst and Biden does become the president, there's still good news for Republicans. But the bad news is that when it comes to pushing an agenda, Biden will probably follow President Obama's example.
I've got a pen. I can use that pen to sign executive orders and take executive actions and administrative actions that move the ball forward.
And that means that with the stroke of a pen, Biden can halt construction of the southern border wall, reinstate critical race theory-based training in the federal government, end oil and gas drilling on federal land, rejoin the Paris Climate Accords and the WHO, repeal the travel ban, soften punishment for illegal border crossings, and end Trump's asylum rule, making it easier for illegal border crossers to claim asylum. Biden will also reinstate DACA, or Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. But the problem with DACA is that if you're a participant in the program, i.e. a dreamer, the DACA program requires you to renew every year, and there is no path to citizenship. Just renew, renew, renew. On the other hand, Trump wanted legislation passed by Congress that would grant as many as 1.8 million dreamers amnesty and a path to citizenship. But Democrats didn't care enough about the dreamers to compromise and give Trump a win. It's just better to use them as political pawns. And you better get ready for increased mask mandates, more lockdowns, and possible mandatory vaccines. All thanks to this man of science over here. Anyway, the bright side of Joe Biden becoming the president, not conceding by the way, is that when it comes time for him to campaign for 2024, he'll be 81 years old, and the conventional wisdom is that he probably won't run for a second term. And that means passing the torch to his vice president, Kamala Harris. And if that happens, she'll likely pick her friend, Senator Cory Booker, as her VP choice. And it is highly unlikely that the Democrats will come together to vote for a Harris-Booker ticket. And that leaves the door open for folks like Senator Tim Scott, Governor Kristi Noem, or Solid Snake to take back the White House for the Republicans in 2024. In fact, the Republicans could pretty much run anyone, because no one wants 8 to 12 years of this.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's it for now. Thanks for watching, sharing, and slamming that like button. Follow me on Twitter and Parler at Don't Walk Run. Be sure you're still subscribed to the channel, and as always, I hope to see you next time.